Hey guys, welcome back to the latest episode of the Growing Your Dental Practice podcast. I am your host, Mike Hennon from Patient Boost. In today's episode, I'm joined by Paula Cadey, head of Mentra Dental Finance, a boutique financial brokerage set up to serve the dental community. Welcome to the show, Paula. Thanks for joining me today. How are you?
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm good, thank you. Feeling a little bit spoiled as this is the second time today I've got to speak to you.
Yeah. I was going to say, it's not a long time since we last spoke.
It's not, no, it's not. I feel very privileged, thank you.
No, but I've been looking forward to getting you on the show for a couple of weeks now. So we're going to be talking quite obviously about sort of finance for the dental profession. But before we do that, tell me a bit more about you, Paula. Like, what's your background?
So I guess born and bred in Essex. I know you came down to Essex at the weekend, didn't you? Did you go with any of my recommendations?
So I was struggling. We were kind of struggling with Brentwood. So I just booked the lot in Shenfield.
Oh, very nice. That's very nice.
I love the lot. My dad actually goes there every Wednesday without fail, and it's been going for like the last 15 years. It's his local. He doesn't live in Shenfield, but it's his local.
He just loves it. Oh well, glad you had a good time. So yeah, I left. I left school after my GCSEs, not really knowing what kind of I wanted to do in my career. And just, I guess, in a lucky way, a friend of mine was his parents were working for HSBC, so said, "Why don't you come for an interview?" So spoke with my parents about it. I think their view was, yep, go and work in a bank for at least 12 months. Looks good on a CV. You can be trusted. So off I went to London. Never really got into London by myself. So that was scary. Went into the working world thinking that I knew everything. And actually, on reflection, I knew nothing. Probably just winged it along the way. But I ended up staying in HSBC for about 12 years. So from something that started off as 12 months, it ended up being a 12-year career there. Through from branch banking into commercial banking, and I guess getting that experience with working with businesses is kind of where I then felt, after a number of years of being in banking, actually, this is what I like doing. I like dealing with businesses. I like seeing them do well. I like helping them financially. So had a good career with HSBC, learned a lot, and then had an opportunity to move over to Metro Bank, which was a new challenger bank at that time. They hadn't really done much in commercial. They'd done a lot of their store, had a lot of store presence, but not really touched much on commercial aside from property. So went in initially to help set up their franchising team. But from day one, well, I was sat on a banker desk with someone else that had come in to start the primary healthcare team. And I guess very quickly, I started to become more and more interested in the conversations that they were having. They were supporting people across the sector, but mainly dental. And I don't know what it was. I just felt like there was something kind of pulling me into that, thinking, well, okay, I'm enjoying what I'm doing, but maybe not as much as doing something else. So fortunately for me, an opportunity came up where I was able to join the healthcare team. And I guess that's where my journey started with healthcare and dentistry, really, and meeting some really great people along the way from all different parts of their journey, not just in dental, but in other sectors as well. But I don't know, I just found dentistry really, really interesting. So I had a good career at Metro Bank. I went from being a relationship manager through to a relationship director to ending my career as head of primary healthcare, and supporting clients from initially purchasing a practice right up to group operators that maybe had 30 plus practices. So a real broad spectrum of clients that I looked after. Then the pandemic hit, and I guess I was a bit of a crossroads with my career at that point, because I was like, not really sure what I want to do. But with COVID, no one really knew what was going to happen. I was looking after a big portfolio of clients, and I thought, everyone's going to need support at the same time, which was a first for me in my career, where everyone needs some form of financial support. And it was a little bit of firefighting and long hours to get stuff done. But thankfully for us, we were in a sector which was resilient and actually didn't need as much financial support as others. And I guess that's where it then led me on to my career that I'm in now, my role I'm in now with Mantra, is that Mantra historically had helped some dentists through their commercial arm, but then kind of looked and thought, okay, this is a sector that has continued to do well. There's lots of people out there looking to sell. There's lots of people out there looking to buy. And I guess where I was in my career, I was ready for something else. Mantra were ready to launch the next part of their business. So it just worked for both of us. And yeah, a very quick snapshot of my career, but mainly in banking, and now very much enjoying the other side and what I'm doing now.
Yeah, because I was going to say, going sort of from big banks to kind of sort of smaller sort of brokerage, that must be quite a big difference.
It is, but there's so many skills that maybe you don't realise when you're in a certain profession, and it just becomes your day to day, that it's not until you kind of step away from that and you actually reflect on what you've done that. And I think especially with banking, look, it taught me so much. I was very fortunate in my career that I got to some positions that I got to, which has led to other opportunities. But it's just what it teaches you in terms of dealing with clients from all different walks of life, with all different requests. And it, like I say, it allowed me to kind of carve out a career into a sector that I kind of felt that fitted me, and I fitted in well too.
Absolutely. And I think it's fantastic that you had experience of like the, from individual practices, I guess probably like, partnerships as well, like people buying into practices, all the way up to those big corporations. Like that's a really amazing set of experience.
And it's been great to support some people. I was fortunate to support some people where they bought their first practice and actually they went on to have 5 or 6. And there's some very ambitious people out there in the dental sector. Banks like to lend to dentists as well. It's a safe sector to lend in. But it certainly was one enjoyment in my career in banking to see those that kind of you met at the start of their journey where they had a vision to become multiple practice owners, actually be able to get there. And you feel like you've been part of their journey as well, which I really like.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a nicer side of like, the money business, helping people grow, and it's not, you're not repossessing it. There could be that.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't
the bad side.
Yeah, it wasn't all great, but touch wood, most of it was.
Brilliant. No, that's good. So obviously you found yourself at Mantra Dental Finance. Tell me more about Mantra, and what's I guess you could feel free to sort of dive into the history of Mantra, like the Mantra Group in general, and kind of where the dental arm is going and where it wants to get to.
Yeah, so I'll start with kind of the Mantra Group, because that leads then into how Mantra Dental Finance was formed. So Mantra Group was formed several years ago by 2 ex-bankers that I was fortunate enough to work with. And initially it was set up to support clients mainly in the property sector because that was the guy's background, and that's where they felt that there needed some more support between the banks and the clients. And similar to dentists, a lot of the property clients, like developers, or they just didn't have much time. So they kind of needed someone to offload all their information onto and then go around the various banks. And then from that, they then started to establish that actually these clients also have other needs within the business that Mantra might be able to help them with. So whether that was personal mortgages, personal buy-to-lets, commercial buy-to-lets, they might have some other commercial investments or other commercial needs. So off the back of that, the business really started to grow. So now we have Mantra Commercial, we have Mantra Mortgages, which help people buying their first residential property or investment properties. And then we also have the Mantra Insurance, which was recently our offering kind of went out to the market as well, which helps people with business insurance, personal insurance, just anyone really that needs any insurance needs, we can help. And with having them different parts of the business, we then found that actually clients aren't coming to us and saying, could you help with our investment properties, or could you do with our mortgage? But actually we need, say, home insurance off the back of that, or we need business insurance. We're saying, oh yeah, we know someone that can do that. So then parts of the business kind of all came together. And then, as I touched on earlier, with dental doing so well, and Mantra already looking after some dental clients through their commercial team, it was kind of then looking at, okay, actually dentists do need something that's tailored just to them. They don't have much time, so they want to speak to someone that understands the sector. They don't want to have to explain what a UDA is or CQC compliance, etc. So I've been speaking with them for quite a while, and we decided that actually this is something that works for myself and works for the business. So we launched Mantra Dental Finance in January 2022. Already had a few clients that we'd help, like I say, through our commercial team. But there just seemed to be, and there is so much opportunity out there to support dentists. They performed strongly through COVID. They have performed through other sectors. Banks were seeing that some banks tweaked their policy a bit during COVID, but a lot of them quickly come back to pre-COVID levels, which kind of showed that actually, if you've got lenders out there, you've got dentists out there that want to either buy a business or grow or start a business, that it's a sector that can perform well. So yeah, I guess that's where we then got to with launching Mantra Dental Finance and what Mantra Dental Finance is today. And it's great for me to be in a business where actually we can serve our dental clients with everything. So whether that's they're buying a practice, need some practice insurance, or they might need a mortgage. So it may well be that they've gone from being an associate to now an owner and their income structure's changed. Some lenders might not fully understand it, so we can kind of work within the group to help them buy some property. Also in the dental sector, we come across some people that might have some property in the background, but not necessarily the cash that they need to invest to start a practice or buy a practice. So again, through the different parts of the business, we can work with our colleagues to help release some money from their property to go towards the financing of the practice or buying the practice. So that kind of brings the group together. I mean, Mantra Dental Finance specifically, what we can help support our clients with is anything from someone looking to buy their first purchase, and first purchase could look very different for different people. It could be that you're setting up a squat practice, you're buying the goodwill of an existing practice, or in some cases, you've got the opportunity to become a partner in a practice you may already be working with or a practice that you're not familiar with, right through to refinancing. In some cases, if you've got some existing practices already, we can look to use some value in that and help you purchase some more, through to equipment finance. So you might need a new dental chair or some other equipment. And anything as well from short-term finance facilities. You might be fortunate where you've got so many patients, but you're out of space in your surgery that you need to expand, and you've got room to expand in your existing practice. So you need to build out some surgeries or do some different refurbs.
Absolutely. So basically, you can help a lot in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Whatever you need finance for, within the group, we can help you. And it is good because it brings it all together. And we're very much about relationships. And we don't want, wouldn't want to speak to a client and say, yeah, I can help you finance your dental practice, but then go and speak to someone else, they'll do your insurance, go and speak to someone else, they'll do your mortgage. It's very, I guess, incestuous in a way that we can just say, actually, I can just go and have a conversation with somebody, and you haven't had to leave the door as it was, because it's all done under the group.
Absolutely, because I think, for any business owner, that ability to kind of save time by going to one person to kind of cover multiple needs is a great opportunity. But I also think, as a practice owner, when your time is even, let's be honest, more valuable than most people's time, that's even greater importance. So I can see that the appeal of going to someone like Mantra to try and get everything. It's almost like the one-stop finance shop, isn't it?
It is in a way, and
you have that for free.
We'll use that, thank you. But no, like you say, it does help, because if people don't have time, and it's a lot easier for us to say, actually, we can go and have a conversation internally, and quite quickly we could come back. Someone, like I said, if someone's got some property but not the cash, we can quite quickly come back and say, actually, we've had a word with our property guys. This is what you could potentially take out, and then kind of off we go and do the deal, and we can make sure that all if there is some money that you need to release, it's all done at the same time, so all lined up to the same objective.
Fantastic, that's brilliant. So you've already touched on some of the different ways you can help a dental practice owner. I'm going to throw a couple of scenarios at you, and then I would love you to kind of explain what would happen. So, for instance, I am an associate. Yeah. I've decided that I want to buy a practice. I'm going to do it on my own, I've started looking into properties and stuff. At what point should I think about, speaking to someone like yourself? Like, at what point do I talk about finance? And then also, what do I need to prepare, or what will you ask me in order to get that loan sort of underway and hopefully approved?
I would say speak to someone about the finance as quickly as possible, because it's a bit like when you're buying a house. You could go and look at a practice or be sent a sales perspective from a sales agent, and straight away your heart could be in it. And very much you need to work out your heart over your head, and do the numbers work. And in some cases, how it's presented and how it's operating at the moment could look very different to how it will be under your ownership. So I would say there's a conversation costs nothing. And I would say engage with someone as early as possible, just to get an indication, because not only if you're dealing with Mantra Dental Finance, but if you was dealing with another broker as well, we know what the banks are offering, and we can very quickly have a conversation with you, do some modelling on the financials, and say, yeah, okay, it could look like this, because quite quickly you could then decide, actually it's not for me, or it does work. And also, there's so much competition for practices at the moment that if you're going to put an offer in, you want to make sure that you're fairly confident, if not more than confident, that actually you're going to get the funding for it and your offer will be considered seriously. Some sellers will want to see a letter of comfort, which we've provided in many situations, to say that this is where we think we can get the lending to. This is kind of what you're looking at, which helps. But yeah, I would say as early as possible, just to give you an idea of, actually, is this something that will work for me? Is this something that I can afford? And it's looking at the whole part of the business, not just the financial side, but also, is it a practice that you have done treatments in? So is it a specialist practice that maybe you've not done anything in, and actually it might not be the right fit for you? So yeah, like I say, a conversation costs nothing. So even if it's just a 10-minute phone call, or we can kind of go more in depth, have that conversation as early as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are looking to you're thinking about buying or even setting up a squat, and you're gonna need to borrow some money, have that conversation with someone like yourself straight away, just so that you're not, like you say, you're not going to be disappointed when you find the perfect practice and realize it's like 3 times over your budget.
Yeah, and you know what? It's not for everyone, practice management. So it may just be that you speak to someone else, or you might already have a few gut feelings, and then you speak to someone else and actually it doesn't work from X, Y, Z, or you need that other person to say, actually, this is a really good practice that you should be going for.
Yeah, no, I think that's because a lot of people do step into or do think about buying a practice, and they might not necessarily consider everything. They may think it's a little bit. It may look, people make it look easier than it is. So I think, if having a conversation about finances puts a few people off that maybe weren't supposed to be a practice owner, I think that's probably a good thing for, like, not just them, but their families, if they're not getting stressed, staff that they might take over. So I think it's a good thing. Now, hopefully more of them do buy practices. But
very often it is the case where you go through the numbers and they work. But like I say, it's also sometimes a slightly different mindset to being an associate, and you could have been earning very favourably as an associate. Then actually you're going to buy a practice and your bank lending could be over 15 years, 20 years, 25 years. And actually your earning potential might decrease. So it's just being in that mindset that actually you might earn less, but get other parts out of it. And let's say just making sure that you understand it from a finance point of view, because ultimately, I guess cash is key, and what you've got left in the business will either be for yourself or for future business growth. But also it's just kind of having that conversation of how will it change your day to day, because yourself, it's very different as a business owner or as an employee or whatever you are, that you can just kind of walk out and your day's finished and you've got no other responsibility. Whereas when everything's on you, you kind of don't turn off. It's not a 5-day week or a 6-day week. It's a 7-day week, 24 hours a day.
Absolutely. Like, yeah, as I can attest to that. So they've had let's say they've had the conversation with you. They've said that this is the typical amount that you can apply for. What does a bank or another type of lender, what do they need from someone who is applying for finance?
So every lender will need something different. And that's why a lot of dentists will use someone like ourselves, because it's time consuming going to every bank that might have different policies. They might require different information. That's time away from your day-to-day job, or time away from your family, that you're having to deal with the lenders, and one person might ask for this and another person something else. So what we will do is we'll kind of put a proposal together on the individual and on the business, and going through the financials, and put a thorough paper together that any lender that we work with, we have personal relationships with them, they understand the sector. They can quite quickly have a read through, have a quick look through the analysis, and come back and say, okay, this is where, from loan to value point of view, this is where we could get to. And again, it gives you a good steer if you're putting in your offer that actually what we're saying and then what the bank's saying is actually something quite achievable, and you're more confident going in.
Yeah, fantastic. So are you kind of helping people put together a business plan, or is that a separate thing that you should expect, say, someone to have?
Yeah, so we can help them with a business plan. And I think a business plan is what you should have, whether you're starting a Scott practice or actually whether you're buying your first practice, right through to an evolving business plan. You could be on your 8th or 9th practice, because things will always change. And sometimes, again, when you're working through a business plan, and we're more than happy to work through with clients with them, it's actually getting you to sit down and look at everything. So again, you're not just looking at say, a piece of paper that says, right, I could earn X and I can do this. It's looking at the whole thing of, okay, what's the potential here? What's the practice doing at the moment? What can you bring to the practice? And then beyond that, what does the practice look like in 12 months? Do you want to go on own more practices? So yeah, I think a business plan is invaluable. And I say it can be something that you work through over time. But again, I think it's good, especially if you're starting a practice or buying a practice for the first time, it's something that you can kind of look back on every 3 or 6 months and say, okay, is there something that we need to do? Are we where we wanted to be on this? So yeah, I would say always have a business plan, always have some projections, so you know financially where you're at. And again, whether some banks might ask for you to provide them with quarterly management information. If not, don't just rely on your bank account. If you've got money in the bank, you're doing okay, and your bills are paid. Yeah, okay, I guess to one extent that is the case, but just make sure you've got something in there where you're managing your performance as well of the practice.
Yeah, excellent. That's brilliant. And talking of business plans, if you go back to, I think, one of the earlier episodes of the podcast, I think it's probably looking at, I don't know, episodes 4 or 5, something like that. Me and one of my co-hosts, Sahil, we go through his business plan. He is he just the way he thinks is great, and it's just like such a thorough business plan. So if you want to listen to that, go and listen to that, and then come back to this episode. And then I guess my suggestion is get in touch with Paula if you're thinking about finance.
Yeah.
the whole thing sorted. That's really great. And we've kind of touched, you've kind of touched on some of the reasons why an individual would come to a broker rather than the bank. You know, like going to the individual banks is time consuming. You'll help them with some of the financial work, the paperwork. What are the other reasons that, you know, someone would come to you or a brokerage like you over sort of dealing with it themselves?
I think, as I touched on before, every lender will want something different. It's time consuming. We can take all that hassle away from you. We understand that you might not be able to speak during the day, or it's very hard to speak to dentists. So firstly, we want to take the time to get to know you. So whether that's in the morning, evening, weekends, we're happy to talk to you at any time. But what we want to make sure is that initially it's something that works with both of us, that we both are happy to work with each other. But also understanding, kind of like an hour, just download all the information to us. We will then take that away. We'll put a proposal together for the banks. We've got sector knowledge. Having working in banking for many years before, we know what banks need. In some cases, we can kind of filter what the banks need, because people are sometimes very honest and they will tell people everything, and they don't, not to say that we won't ever hide anything bad, but there's certain things that a nice to know versus need to know, whereas we kind of know, okay, we kind of deal in facts. This is what you need to know, and this is what we'll put together. We have really good relationships with the lenders as well, and we can negotiate on behalf of the client to get them the best deal. So we'll go out to our tier one lenders, our other lenders, and our client will then next hear from us once we've heard back from everyone, and kind of cut out all the bank jargon and just say, okay, these are the deals that are on the table. And it may be that one lender can get to a higher loan to value, but maybe charge a little bit more, or a lender might be able to get to a lower loan to value, but charge less. So it's then working through them and advising them on what we think is the best deal. And also understanding what they want now, but also in the future, because we don't want to put them with a lender where they might say, okay, we'll do one, but actually we know they want to buy 10 practices. So there's going to come another time where actually you're going to have to go back around the banks, which in a way is good for us because we could get more business, but you've then got all the hassle of dealing with other banks. So we kind of say, look, let us take all the stress. We'll come back to you. We'll work through the proposals with you. And then we will just be dealing with the banks. The banks will, again, post-approval or during credit, they'll come back with a number of questions that we can just filter through. There might be some cases where we need to go back to the client to ask, but we kind of want to have as less interaction with them during that process because we will be working for them with the banks. Then even after credit approval, that's kind of when the fun really happens, when you start to go through the process and valuations, and we're there the whole way. So right up to completion, we can get involved from an independent point of view to move things along, because especially with acquisitions, they can take 6 to 9 months, and could be some cases where the solicitors aren't really agreeing on stuff, or the bank might be asking for something that actually isn't relevant. So again, we can just be involved and kind of work through all that across all the parts of the sector and the like the accountants, solicitors, whatever it may be, to get the deal done as quickly as possible. So really, from our view,
great reason.
Yeah, from having an initial conversation, I mean, look, we're very much about building a relationship. We'll always kind of let them know what's going on, but it's let's just speak when we need to speak. Whereas if you went directly to a bank, firstly, you don't know if you're getting the best deal. And I had a situation where I talked to someone a few weeks ago. They were far into their acquisition, but and they were kindly enough just to share with me the offer that they got. But in my opinion, I don't feel like they got the best offer. It was just a case of spoke to someone, they said, go to this lender. We went to that lender. And there's been a few things kind of come out the woodwork that they've had to take time away from their associate roles at the moment to sort out, whereas we could have done that for them.
Yeah. So yeah, this sounds like, there's, it's someone that's been there, done that before. You've got the experience, you've got the relationships already, so it just makes the process smoother, potential to save money as well. And just put more, rather than just being on your own, you versus the banks doesn't sound great, is it?
Isn't it? And you know what, in a way we can sometimes be a bit bullish because we know what potentially is out there with other lenders, and like I say, sometimes the banks might ask for something that we don't feel is appropriate. Whereas if they went to the client and asked that, the client might say, okay, yeah, well, that's normal, when we can deal with that. And it's also helping the client not only up to completion, but after completion as well, because you hope that everything will be peachy and will be running smoothly. And whether it's that the bank may ask, usually at the higher end of borrowing, but they'll ask for certain financial covenants to be met. So it's going through that with them and explaining with them, but also being there to support them. If they did run into a little bit of an issue with the bank, we don't just want to do the transaction. Like, we want to be there to advise and help you through all of the business. Yeah,
absolutely. That's fantastic. So Paula, you've delivered some great advice already. So if I had to nail you down to your number one piece of advice for anyone who's thinking about buying or starting a dental practice, what would that number one piece of advice be?
Oh my God, one piece of advice. That's really hard.
I know, it's not an easy one.
It's not an easy one. I would say my one piece of advice is really, really think this through, especially if you're a first-time buyer. Is this something that you really want to do? And it's such a transition from going from an associate to a practice owner, not only just on a financial commitment, but also from a management point of view. Your lifestyle will change. Like speak with people. I'd say speak with as many people as you can. Speak with people that have gone through it. Speak with your family and friends, because your life's probably going to change, especially if you've got a family. Speak with people like ourselves. Just speak with as many people as you can. And I think that at the end of it, if you decide that actually it's not something for me, or you might feel like, well, people that I studied with are now got practices. Like just because something's right for someone else, it doesn't mean that it's right for you. So yeah, just really think about the decision and make sure you've spoken to as many people as you can. And yeah, just I think if you write down on a piece of paper and there's 10 reasons not to do it, but 2 not to, if there's 10 reasons to do it and 2 not to, don't go with the 2 not to, go with the 10 to, and you'll work it out as you go along.
Fantastic. No, I do love that. And I think another thing to point out is, like, just because it's not right now doesn't mean it's not going to be right ever. Like, just it might be not the right circumstances right now. Yeah.
And you know, we recently were helping a client that actually had a practice, sold the practice, become an associate, and now has gone back to a practice owner.
Back. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Yeah, and I've heard that a few times as well. So, like I say, it might be that it's not right now, but it doesn't mean that it's not going to be in your future. And just pave the future that you want. Don't follow anyone else.
Love
Sorry,
that.
that was more than one piece.
That's good. I kind of let. If you've got more advice, I'm quite happy to let the listeners.
Oh, I've got loads. I mean, anyone that's got a spare hour and wants to just talk through it, then bring me.
Perfect. That leads me nicely into, if people listening want to reach out to you, they want to talk about their finances, they're excited to buy a practice, how can they do that? How can they contact you?
I'd say probably the best way initially was just over email. So that's paula@mantradentalfinance.com. You can also find us on our social networks. We're on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, just under Mantra Dental Finance. So yeah, I'd say initially probably by emails. As I mentioned earlier, we can be available when you're available. We know that you might not have time at lunchtime, or it might be someone that you need to speak privately because people in the practice might not know your plans. So yeah, just drop me an email and we can set up an initial call or a meeting. Yeah, I like speaking to people, so just
so get on the phone,
get in contact.
Drop Paula an email. I will include all that information in the show notes. But lastly, Paula, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Really great. A great in-depth insight into your world and how it can help sort of the dentists out there. Yeah, fantastic. Really good advice.
No, thank you for having me. And for my first podcast, you've been very gentle on me, so thank you very much.
I'm a gentle person.
You are.
We'll get you back on again soon. Things might change in the industry, that kind of thing. So we'll definitely keep an eye out, keep in touch. But no, thanks again, Paula, and I'll see you very soon.
Absolutely. All right, thanks. Bye.